Howdy, gang, and I hate to get on here and get off of here again. Um, I'm going to check my audio too after this one and see if it's got some staticky parts in it. So I know it's a little static at least one or two parts on the last two streams I did. I'm just going to take myself out of the stream because I forgot to bring my caffeine back here, my soft drink. So I will be right back. Hello, dear husband. My dear husband Steve's in here. But I will return in just 1 second, folks. Okay, so I'm back. And before I get into any housekeeping things, in case you weren't sure what I was going to be talking about tonight on Fantasy Fulci, this is going to be Stephen King Fulci style. So I'm going to talk about 5 different Stephen King adaptations that have already been made, but we're going to talk a little bit about, or I am, unless I have somebody that wants to come on here with me. I don't think that's going to be Steve because he's supposed to be working, so I don't think he's going to do that. But if anybody else comes in here and would like the link to come in live with me on the stream and discuss either these Stephen King movies, or if you've got some of your own that you would have liked, had Fulci been in really good health to be able to do all of these, it would have been great, in my opinion, to see what he had done with these. The ones I'm going to talk about are very good adaptations on their own, but we're just going to talk a little bit about what if Fulci had directed them. What do we think he would have done with them? So we're going to get to that in just a second. And I just wanted to bring up something about the shop, my Deadites on Deck shop at deaditesondeck.com. Hey, Phil. Hey, by the way, Phil, I watched your Better Late Than Never. I should have already watched it, but I watched your first video on your channel. Hey, Cryptex. Well, Steve, actually, Pet Cemetery is one I'm going to be talking about tonight because I was thinking the same thing that you were, that, due to the subject matter, it would have been awesome to see what Fulci could have done with it. But Phil, I wanted to say that was a great first video on your channel, and I can't wait to see more whenever you get some time to take a look at it, or take a look at it, get some time to make another one. Yes, Cryptex, I did get your email. I've got to respond to that too. Thank you for reminding me. But yes, I did get the email. But let me go and grab something real quick that I was going to show you guys and gals, if there's any gals in here watching. So I'm going to kind of try to add a little pizzazz to the candles, and that includes their appearance and also the scent of them. Okay, so Steve helped me come up with an idea for a candy corn candle. I was like, Steve, can you think of like a horror movie theme that would go with like candy corn? And Steve came up with Children of the Candy Corn, which is a candle that I recently made. And I've been, reading up on tips on do-it-yourself candles, and have, figured out that one, You don't want to put the scent, the oil that you're using, whatever particular scent of oil that you're wanting to use, until the wax has cooled down. You don't want it to be solid. You still want it to be pourable so you can pour it into the container that you're using. And some of you guys might be saying, oh, we don't care about any damn candles, but somebody might. So I did learn that, and also to keep mixing it for a minute or so. Maybe it's a couple of minutes, in the wax. So I'm also going to be trying a different fragrance oil, a different brand of fragrance oil, and this is Eternal Essence, and this is a candy corn scent. Now, in the past, I'd been using P&J Trading Company oil, which is perfectly fine, but I'm really wanting to try this because this brand of oil seems a little stronger in scent. Now, Steve's probably going to say, well, I didn't know you had these. But I did get them in the last few weeks. I just haven't had a chance to use them. And this is Roleo pigments. This is mica powder. And this is supposed to give you a deeper color. It comes with a little spoon. And you have several different colors in here. And the one I'm going to use, I don't know if y'all can see that, but that, well, where is it? This one here is Tiger Orange, and that's what I'm going to use for the candle. These also have a little bit of glittery looking stuff in them. So I'm really excited to be able to use this mica powder. There are 24 colors in here. And hey, TC Gaming, or just TC rather. So I just wanted to let you guys and gals that are watching this now or might watch this on the replay that I've got some new ideas in the works for some candles. TC, you say you just went to Halloween Horror Nights yesterday. It was tons of fun. I bet it was. You know, I've dragged Steve to, and I say drag because if I didn't want to go, Steve probably would never go to these things. But over the years that me and Steve have been married, I've dragged him to his fair share of like haunted houses and the Rocky Horror Picture Show with a shadow cast. I kind of wanted to go. Where was it? Was it the Palace here in Louisville? But Barry Bostwick was going to be there. It may have already, or it might be going on this weekend. I'm not really sure. But they're having the Rocky Horror Picture Show anniversary, and Barry Bostwick's going to be there, and you can get like a VIP meet and greet, but I didn't care anything about that. Those of you that are familiar with the film version of the Rocky Horror Picture Show will know that Barry Bostwick played Brad in the film version, and Susan Sarandon, of course, played Janet. And this is going to be, the movie's going to be projected, and there's going to be a shadow cast, and audience participation. And I kind of wanted to go, but Steve wasn't too keen on it. And I'm not trying to out him right here on the stream, but we did go 2-3 years back to see the Rocky Horror Picture Show. What was it? The Copper Kings Tavern or something like that. And it was outside and it was cold that year. So I'm glad that I did not, I wanted to dress like Columbia. And I didn't end up doing that because I couldn't get my costume together in time. But there were some girls that were dressed like some characters from the film, and they told me they were kind of sorry they didn't just wear a Rocky Horror Picture Show T-shirt and like jeans and a jacket like I had on because it was cold. And there were some guys dressed like Frankenfurter, and I was like, "Whoa! I bet you're freezing to death out here." Um, but it was fun, I'm sure these aren't like the old-fashioned audience participation ones, but it was fun nevertheless. I did enjoy it. I think Steve enjoyed it pretty well too. Um, but I want to remind everybody that tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, just because me and Candace are mixing it up a little bit, keep everybody on their toes. Friday Foolish will not be at 1 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, but it will be at 6 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. And as of now, that time is going to work out better for me and for Candace and for Chris if he wants to come on. And we'll see how it works out for everybody else. Hopefully, we'll be able to have a few more people on at that time, because maybe less people will be at work at that time period. So we're going to be talking about our favorite fall and Halloween films. And believe it or not, there's going to be some that don't have a Halloween theme to them. They just, they just feel like fall, or they just feel like Halloween to us. Yeah, we'll be getting foolish and shit. That's right. Yep, we certainly will. But with all of that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get to the topic at hand. Phil, you say you were a regular at Rocky Horror back in the day. I bet that was just awesome, Phil. I must admit that the first time I saw the Rocky Horror Picture Show, I didn't really know what to think of it. And then I started hearing more about it and how people had followed it over the years, and I decided to give it another try and became a huge fan of it. Now, I know some people do not like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. They do not. Chris is one of them. He does not like that movie. But I guess, you could like it, you could love it, or you could just say meh, or you could just hate it. I think there's maybe 4 schools of thought on the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and that's fine. We can't all like the same things, right? So let's go ahead and get into the Stephen King adaptations. And we're going to talk about what, y'all throw in your 2 cents, 10 cents, $1.50, whatever you want to throw in there. And if you think of something that's not a Stephen King adaptation and you want to just bring it up, that is fine too. X-Ray, you say Rocky Horror is baller, but it's best on the big screen with an audience. Yeah, I certainly agree, X-Ray. I agree with that. And Phil says that's right. So the first Stephen King adaptation that I wanted to talk about was The Shining. For some reason, last night when I was thinking about what I wanted to cover on Fantasy Fulci, and Stephen King adaptations popped into my mind, I was like, wouldn't it been like crazy, bizarre, but also fun if Fulci had directed The Shining instead of Kubrick? Now, there's going to be some people that get on me about that, because some people are hardcore Kubrick fans and Kubrick fans through and through of The Shining. And they don't care what Stephen King or anybody else says about it. Now, let me preface this by saying I have always said that the Kubrick version of The Shining is a fantastic horror film. But if I had to be totally honest, it does not follow Stephen King's book, and Kubrick didn't mean for it to. Kubrick wanted to do something different. But can you guys and gals imagine if Fulci had been able to get a hold of this property? what kind of bizarre things would he have done with it? You say House by the Cemetery is basically that. I could see that, X-Ray. I could see that. Um, but how would Fulci have uh, created the Jack Torrance character? How would he have created the ghost? Would he have created them like like the ghost in House by the Cemetery, which I'm glad X-Ray brought that up, or would he have done something even more different, even more bizarre with it? I could see him going way, way out there with that, and I could see it being a lot more bloody because when you think about it, Kubrick's version of The Shining was not all that bloody, really. I mean, Jack axes poor Halloran when he comes to check up on the family. The blood comes out of the elevator. You see some blood on the dead twins, um, but there's not like balls to the wall, blood and gore everywhere. And I think if Fulci had been able to get his hands on it, it would have been wall to wall blood, slime, guts. There probably would have been some eyeball skewering in it. Um, I definitely think that Jack Torrance would have used a variety of weapons, not just an axe. He probably would have used some knives, some yeah, yeah, I guarantee it, X-Ray. The bathtub lady would have been like Freud's. Exactly, exactly. I mean, I thought the lady in the bathtub was pretty creepy, as it was in Kubrick's version. And I even thought the lady in the bathtub was creepy in uh, Mick Garris's version, right? The miniseries version. But I think that the lady in the bathtub would have been very much a putrid mess if Fulci had any hand in creating that. Because remember, if Fulci had done it, he would have had those great Italian special makeup effects guys. And boy, what they would have done with that lady. Yeah. Um, yeah, I just, it blows my mind. I can almost visualize the majority of that movie with a Fulci spin on it. And I think there would have been no limits to what Fulci would have done with it, how far he would have gone with it. And I'm also curious, had he done an adaptation, what would Stephen King have thought of Fulci's adaptation? And y'all can throw things out there if you like. What do you think that King would have thought about a Fulci adaptation of his work? Um, in particular, as we're talking about The Shining right now. The lady in the tub was traumatizing, Phil. I ain't gonna lie, but I think, and I'm gonna be talking about Pet Cemetery here, and here's another one that Fulci would have shined on, I think, but I'm gonna get to that one a little bit later. But I think although the lady in the bathtub was very traumatizing and creepy, Zelda freaks me out. Zelda freaks me out to this day, from Pet Cemetery. And it's just like, and you hear other adults saying that scared them then when they were a lot younger. It still scares them. I heard Sean Clark talking about Zelda on that Unearthed and Untold: The Path to Pet Cemetery, and he seemed pretty freaked out about Zelda. So, moving on to another King adaptation, Silver Bullet, based on the novelette Cycle of the Werewolf. Now, y'all feel free to prove me wrong, but I don't believe that Fulci ever did a werewolf film, did he? I mean, he did zombie films and stuff like that, but I don't think he ever did a werewolf film. I think most of his stuff tied in with like zombies, the living dead, nasty putrid things coming back to life and stuff. But what could Fulci have done with a werewolf movie? In fact, this isn't King, but An American Werewolf in London, The Howling. Um, in addition to Silver Bullet, what could he have done with a werewolf movie? I definitely think it would have been gorier than all of those movies combined. And it definitely wouldn't have had any humor in it, unless it was unintentional humor, which is something that I think happens with some of Fulci's films. Phil, you say you think Silver Bullet would have benefited from a bigger budget. I agree with that too. Um, yeah, X-Ray, technically, if you look at it that way, Silver Bullet was an Italian horror movie because it was produced by Dino De Laurentiis. But I think Daniel Attias directed it, and I'm not sure if Daniel Attias is Italian or not. And when I think of like Italian producers, I mean, they put up the money, but traditionally, I don't think producers are the creative force behind the films. Um, Phil, you say, I think Super Bowl would have been a good movie without the humor, maybe even better. X-Ray, you said the weakest part of that movie was the wolf. It's insane. Oh, wow, X-Ray. I'm surprised to hear you say that. I mean, I'm not saying anything bad about that. That is your opinion. But I thought the werewolf was great in Silver Bullet. Um, but but I think again, Fulci definitely would have put a different, more bizarre spin on the werewolf. And he definitely would have made it bloodier and gorier. There probably would have been intestines hanging out, eyeballs hanging out. I know that at the beginning, Arnie Westrom got his head knocked off. If you watch, the theatrical version of it, and then Arnie's head ends up on the train tracks, and we don't see it, but his head gets squished by a train. Uh, oh, I thought maybe you was talking about something I hadn't seen. Oh, okay. You said Silver Bullet, not Super Bowl. Oh, okay. Um, so let me ask you this, Phil. Did you not like Gary Busey and the comedic parts that he threw in there? Because Uncle Red, Gary Busey's character was something I always appreciated growing up, and I still appreciate today. And speaking of movies that we watch or I watch around Halloween or in the fall, although it only has one particular scene that takes place around Halloween, and in Silver Bullet, I still consider Silver Bullet. It just feels like fall to me. That movie just has, fall emanating from it. It's like an aura or something, a glow or whatever. X-Ray, you say Silver Bullet would benefit from a remake, but it would look shitty like the new Salem's Lot. So you didn't like the new Salem's Lot, X-Ray? I didn't absolutely love the new Salem's Lot, but I didn't hate it either. But I much prefer, and I told Steve this after we finished watching it, I much prefer Tobe Hooper's original miniseries. And I think I always will. that portrayal of it. Um, you say be woke as fuck. Phil, you say I was fine with the humor, but I just think taking the humor out and made the make the movie more serious would have been a good movie too. Yeah, I mean that would have been an interesting take on it, to make it a little darker, take a little bit of that humor out. Um, and I don't think the character was called Uncle Al in the novelette, and I always liked Uncle Red better. You know, I have the utmost respect for Stephen King, but for some reason, Uncle Red just, I don't know, it sounded more fun. And say what you will about Gary Busey, I just think he played Uncle Red perfectly. It was just absolutely perfect. But I can see what you guys are saying about if some of the humor had been taken out of it. X-Ray, you say something about the new one looks off, like a Marvel movie or something. The way it was shot is too overdone. I think I could see that. I can see where you're coming from with that. Maybe a little too polished, maybe, X-Ray, too Hollywood. And, you know, I'm not going to go deeply into this because some people might be offended. But the way they change certain characters, I didn't think was needed. But I've been saying this about almost every remake that they have done. I didn't much care for The Stand either. And there were several reasons why I didn't. I liked the new Salem's Lot better than I did The Stand. X-Ray said one of Busey's best roles. It's a shame he had that accident. Dude should have had more lead roles. I agree, X-Ray. I agree. Phil, you say I was a little kid when Salem's Lot came out, and I didn't like the movie when I was younger. I rewatched it when I got older and enjoyed it a lot more. Now, if Steve's still in here, he told me he watched Salem's Lot when he was a kid, and it terrified him for several nights afterwards. X-Ray, you say, yeah, horror is too polished nowadays. Had a similar look to that new Indiana Jones movie. It just didn't look right. So is autocorrect being the bane of your existence today, Phil, or tonight, Phil? I know how you feel if that's the case. So I'm moving on to the next one. And guys and gals, if y'all want to keep talking about one particular one, even if I've moved on to another one, that is perfectly fine. In fact, we're having some good discussion tonight, and I appreciate that a lot. But moving on to the next one, Carrie, which Brian De Palma did a fantastic job. I'm a huge fan of all things Brian De Palma. But can you imagine what Fulci would have done with that? Again, definitely would have been more bloody. Carrie probably would have used her powers to pull people's innards out and suck their eyeballs out of their head, drive, splinters from the stage into people's eyes. I mean, it definitely would have been more violent and more gory than what De Palma did with it. Now, De Palma did a fine job. Carrie is one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations. And I was glad that De Palma did it. If anybody directed it, and there have been other versions of Carrie, but the De Palma version has always been my favorite. It's always my go-to. I don't go back to the others. I return to the 1976, what I feel is a classic, directed by Brian De Palma and starring Sissy Spacek as Carrie. That's okay, X-Ray. If that makes you laugh, laugh like there's no tomorrow. Oh wow, yeah, Phil, that's a good one too. You say I could only imagine what Fulci would have done with Carrie's mom. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine? I mean, she was crazy enough as it was. Piper Laurie was played her fantastically, but can you imagine if Fulci, with his Italian sensibilities and stuff, had been directing either Piper Laurie or whoever played Margaret White? I mean, she would have been, she was crazy enough, but she would have been off the charts, batshit crazy. And probably when she stabs Carrie near the end of the film, she probably would have done more than that. If Fulci had been at the directing helm, I guarantee it would have been more gruesome. And even anybody that's read the book Carrie knows that near the end of it, Carrie makes her mother's heart stop. That's how she kills her. But of course, when De Palma got a hold of it and they wanted to make it more cinematic and they wanted to have more punch than Carrie just making her mother's heart stop. Um, very sharp implements get thrown into Margaret White and she goes into an orgasmic death. And if you don't know what I mean, if you've not seen Carrie, the Brian De Palma version, then I urge you to, give it a watch. X-Ray, you say, man, fuck Carrie. I want to see Fulci's Maximum Overdrive. Okay, X-Ray, that's a good one. I didn't have that on my list. But you get in here in the chat and you tell me what you think Fulci would have done with Maximum Overdrive. I want to hear it. This is what I wanted to do with Fantasy Fulci. I wanted people to get involved, whether they're on camera with me or not. If you're in the chat, I want you to fill up that chat with, you don't have to talk about the same ones I'm talking about. You can throw any movie out there that you want. But I want to hear some descriptions. I want to hear what you guys think that Fulci would have done with this. So again, Carrie and Fulci's hands. The prom sequence, when they poured the pig's blood on Carrie, probably wouldn't have just been pig's blood. It probably would have been guts from the pig, brain from the pig, whatever, in her hair and in the crown and in her flowers that she got and all that stuff. Oh, well, that's a good thing, X-Ray. You'd kind of take some of the shame off of me because I don't look good. You say I'd go on camera, but I'm too damn handsome, Daner. Phil, you say the parts of Carrie and her mom were such strong female roles, very enjoyable to watch. I agree, Phil. Um, so, moving right along to the fourth one on my list, because like I always say, if I don't have somebody on here with me, I try to keep these between 30 and 45 minutes long. Occasionally I will go to an hour, but that's rare when I'm on here by myself. So the fourth one, of course, is Pet Sematary, and Steve brought that one up a little bit earlier. Yeah, Fulci would have had a field day with Pet Sematary. There's no doubt about that, because what is Pet Sematary essentially? The dead coming back to life, but the dead are not like they were when they were alive. There's something off about them, very off. And they're evil when they come back. So if you had handed that over to Fulci and said, Fulci, my man, you make Pet Sematary any way you want. Okay? I think he definitely would have had like maggots crawling all over the dead. Did you see any maggots in the version that we saw? No. I mean, they look dead and they look cool, and all that, but I guarantee Fulci would have had maggots falling all off of them. He would have had gaping holes in the bodies. He might have had some brains hanging out. He probably would have had the dead pulling the living's brains out. Probably cutting their tongues out, cutting heads off. He probably, hopefully, he wouldn't have had any real animal deaths. I don't think he would have, because Fulci didn't do that sort of thing in his own movies. Uh, but I guarantee that the fake animal deaths would have been almost too realistic for us. And can you imagine when like Church came back, or when Judd is telling, going, having a flashback and talking about when he was a little boy and his dog Spot had got caught in some barbed wire and it got infected and he died, and he buried him up in the Micmac Indian burial ground. I mean, they call this Pet Cemetery, and Stephen King called the book Pet Cemetery. But actually, where they buried the animals and the people, and they came back to life, was the Micmac Indian burial ground, which was beyond the Pet Cemetery. The Pet Cemetery wasn't the problem. It was the Indian burial ground beyond that. X-Ray, you said Pet Cemetery definitely has a house by the cemetery vibe. Problem is there would be real animal cruelty, which I hate. Well, the thing is, like I said, X-Ray, Fulci, I never knew Fulci to have any animal cruelty in his films. Now, I think he did almost get in trouble. He may have even had to go to court. I forget which movie it was. Maybe y'all can help me out. Where Carlo Rambaldi had did some dogs, and they were so realistic that people thought that they had done terrible things to real dogs, and charges I think were initially brought against the filmmakers, including Fulci. But if memory serves me, I don't think Fulci ever participated in any animal cruelty. That tended to be the cannibal films, which, although I like the cannibal films, I absolutely am outraged at the real animal cruelty, because there was no need to kill actual animals on screen. I've said that over and over and over again. Phil, you say, I think Pet Cemetery would have fit Fulci's style the best of the movies you've talked about so far. And yeah, that was one of the first ones it came to my mind early on, Phil. It did, I think it would have fit his style, and he probably would have been more comfortable with that subject matter. And it would have been awesome to see what he could have done with it. As it would have been, Mary Lambert did a fantastic job of directing it. I liked her style. Mary Lambert was known, I think, for a lot of rock videos and stuff like that. But I always liked what she did with Pet Cemetery. But, speaking of Zelda again, can you imagine what Fulci would have done with Zelda? Zelda probably would have looked even more creepy than we could have ever imagined. And she was creepy as hell on the original Pet Cemetery. I mean, now, to talk about the remake of Pet Cemetery, I did not like it. I tried to go in with an open mind watching it. I didn't watch it at the theater. I think I watched it, maybe it was Amazon Prime or something that I watched it on a little bit later. But yeah, Fulci would have had this thing chock full of very gory zombies. Like I said, they would have had maggots crawling all over them. He might have had a little Gates of Hell, City of the Living Dead vibe, House by the Cemetery vibe, the Beyond vibe, all those different things in Pet Cemetery, had he been able to put his stamp on it. Actually, you said, I wonder if Fulci ever played Legend of Zelda as well, Dana. I don't know, X-Ray. That's a good question. Uh, Phil, you say director Lucio Fulci was involved in a court case over his 1971 film A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, and another one over his 1983 film Conquest. Now, Phil, in either of those films, was it proven that there was any animal cruelty? I'm just kind of interested. I mean, not interested in the animal cruelty. I was just never aware that there was ever any actual animal cruelty going on. Just the thing with Carlo Rambaldi creating the fake dogs, and like I said, I can't recall which movie that was from. You say no, okay. If anybody knows of any, feel free to share. Um, it's not that I want to talk about animal cruelty. It's just I don't want to give, false information out there. No cruelty was found. Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing, Phil. So I think even Paxcal in this, even though Paxcal was supposed to be a good ghost, as Ellie says, I think he would have gored up Paxcal, and there would have been maggots all over Paxcal as well. Probably maggots on Zelda as well. I mean, he probably would have threw maggots on everybody on this. Hey, Russell, how you doing, buddy? It's good to see you in here. So the final movie I want to talk about is The Stand. And I would definitely have wanted to see what Fulci could have done with the long form format. In that, I mean the miniseries format. What could he have done with a movie about a virus that spreads through the world? Essentially, we're focused on the United States, right? But it's supposedly supposed to take over the whole world. What could he have done with that? I mean, I think he would have definitely gored that up as much as he could have. If he was doing a mini series, of course, he probably would have been restricted. Unless he was doing it in Italy. Um, I'm not sure what their rules are, standards and practices is for television in Italy. I think it's pretty different than it is in the United States. I think I have seen Murder Rock, Russell. It's been a while, but I thought that was one I watched with Steve. You say you found it on YouTube? Cool. But I think he would have made the people dying of Captain Trips, the super flu, whatever you want to call it. I think he would have gored them up tremendously. And Randall Flagg, I think he would have really taken that to the next level. There are some people that say that Randall Flagg was like the weakest thing about the Mick Garris miniseries for The Stand. They didn't like when he morphed into the devil looking creature. I never minded it, but keep in mind this is back in 1994. I was a senior in high school when that miniseries came out, so I was probably a little more lenient than maybe I would be now. Um, Phil, you say in Europe they don't have hang-ups about nudity, but gruesome violence is a different story. So he probably would have had to, they could have had some more nudity in the, or had some nudity in it. But probably would have had to tone down the violence a tad, though, as well. I've seen some foreign commercials where they show boobage on the women, and it's like, whoa. So what do y'all think? You guys and gals that are, well, it seems like it's all guys tonight, but there might be some gals watching, so I don't want to leave out the gals. So what do you guys think of what do you think Fulci would have done with The Stand? Do you think it would have been a worthy entry um, for him to have? This was a couple of years. This came out a couple of years before Fulci passed away. I think Fulci passed away in '96, and he was quite sick in and around that time. So, barring any major health issues, let's say he was in pretty decent health at that time. What could you guys have seen him do with The Stand? I mean, do you have any, additional things that you think he would have done with it? Um, Even if he did it in the television format and had to, tone down the violence a little bit. Or any of these others that I've talked about, or any other Stephen King adaptations in these last few minutes. And if anybody doesn't have anything they want to add in a minute or so, I will call it a night, because I have been on here blabbing for 46 minutes. And that's about usually my limit. You can't, Phil, you say you can't picture Fulci doing a mini series. I mean, it may have been too long for him. He may have said, I don't want to do that. That's, definitely a possibility. But if he had been interested, I would have loved to see what he could have done with one. Anybody got any other, comments on The Stand or any of the other movies we talked about tonight, or anything that you want to add? Oh, and I wanted to ask, is anybody dressing up for Halloween this year other than me? I'm going to be Laurie Strode this year. I've already got my costume already, and all of that. Trick or Treat Studios actually had a Laurie Strode costume. And I've got my wig, and I've got a knife, and all that. X-Ray, you say you never watched The Stand, so I can't comment, Dana. Well, that's okay. Um, I would encourage you to watch it sometime if you got it. It was an 8-hour miniseries. Now it'll be a little bit shorter, without the commercials. X-Ray, you say no plans as of yet. Don't want to stay home though. Yeah, well, I mean, I'll probably be staying home. I'll probably take off from work so I can plan and stuff like that. I'll hand out candy. I'll got to get a bunch of treat bags ready with candy and little Halloween pencils and spider rings and stuff like that for the kiddos. Phil, you say we are going to a Halloween party, but I cannot remember what I'm dressing up as. Well, if you remember, Phil, and you pop in on one of these other streams, feel free to share. X-Ray, you said, yeah, Dana, you play Lori. Steve should play Loomis. Yeah, well, Steve's going to he'll be working. He won't be working as late a shift as he is now, but he'll be working till about 9:30, and he'll get home between 9:30 and 10, far after the trick-or-treat hours have ended. But I guess, even though I hate to, because we got 8 people in here, which is a lot for me as of late. I guess I'm going to go ahead and call it a night, but I want to thank all of you guys and gals, if there were some gals watching. I want to thank everybody that was in the chat. I want to thank everybody that was watching, maybe didn't feel comfortable chatting. I want to thank everybody in advance that will watch this on the replay. Again, I appreciate everyone's support of my little channel, because I think of it as a little channel. I don't think my channel's ever, like I've said before, going to explode and become extremely popular. But that's okay, because I still enjoy doing this stuff, and as long as I continue to enjoy doing these streams and videos, I'm going to keep doing it. Thank you, Phil. Russell, you say you watched a film last night called The Wish Demon. Great story, gore effects, and cast. Angus Scrimm, uh, Robert Englund, Kane Hodder, Vern Troyer, Tony Todd. That it almost sounds like the Wish. It sounds like Wish Master, but you say it was called The Wish Demon. I'll have to see if I can look that up. Um, but in any event, I've almost been on here an hour, 10 more minutes, and I would have been on here an hour, but I think I better call it a night. But I'm off like a dirty shirt. This shirt is not dirty, but I am off like one. And I want to remind everybody, as I always do before I get off of here for the night, to be kind to one another and blaze that trail. Have a fantastic rest of your Thursday night. Put your feet up and relax. Watch some cool movies, um, horror or otherwise. Wishmaster. Yes, I love Wishmaster, Russell. I haven't seen it for a little while, but I do love it. And thank you to my dear husband for reminding people to leave a thumbs up. Also, if you think that you might like to check out some of my other streams and videos that I do, be sure to like, subscribe, click the notification bell so you will know when I am doing the next live stream or when I've got new content coming up. Also, if you have friends or family members that you think might be interested in the stuff I do, be sure to share the channel with them. I'm always looking for new people to come in. I really love all my uh, regular guys and gals that come in here. I appreciate you all, and I love each and every one of you. And I hope you continue to return. And but a few more people wouldn't be bad either. So um, anyway, we are getting ever closer to the weekend. Tomorrow is Friday. Yes, I am ready for the weekend. This week hasn't, knock on wood, it hadn't been too bad. I always feel like I should say something because that CrowdStrike issue happened on a Friday, and I'm scared to death of something like that happening again. That was an absolute nightmare. And for any of you that are in, IT and were affected by that, or even if your computer, you work from home or you work in an office and your computer was affected by the CrowdStrike fiasco, I feel for you folks. I do. So, I am out of here for the night, but I will see everybody next time. Take care, folks.